I have with us what are known as the Bliss Champions. And by name, one is Eric, the other is Patrick. And over the last 24 years, Eric has founded and co founded at least 20 entities exceeding $250 million in revenue. He excels at bootstrapping quality businesses to 3 to 5 million in annual revenue within 3 years. Out of 20 entities, 13 have achieved seven figures, while two have skyrocketed to eight figures alone. Patrick, on the other hand, has also made millions while performing on prestigious stages like HBO and Just for Laughs, and shared his one-man show, Man One, Bank Zero, to over 100,000 people globally. He is also highly in demand by industry titans like Google and Hilton for his inspirational keynote speeches. Now, though they both had it all, Patrick and Eric struggled for years to find deeper meaning and satisfaction in their lives. However, it wasn't until they discovered that their highest purpose and it wasn't until they discovered their highest purpose and successfully monetized it that they found the bliss in the lives that they were missing. So now they have this exclusive 6-month incubator, coaching, luxury retreat, and investment program that I want Eric and Patrick to start telling me about. So guys, welcome to the show. That's an impressive journey. And I know that's the nice stuff. That's the let's drive to the nice neighborhood stuff. I know that didn't come easy. I mean, pulling teeth and hair.
Yeah. Hey, Phillip, first of all, it looks like you've done over 100 episodes of this show. Is that true?
I've done.
So now you're scraping the bottom of the barrel, right? And you're like, who else? Who can I find? How about these two guys? So appreciate you being on. And look, we are honestly, to our core, we are all about people doing something that is purposeful and passionate and brings them great joy. That's what we exist for in Bliss Champions. And somebody that does 107 episodes of a podcast is you're on point, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's where our deepest respect is. It's not in dollars and cents. It's in people living what brings them joy and is in alignment with their purpose. So thanks for having us on.
Man, that's huge. And I know that that's what you guys work on, right, Patrick, Eric?
Look, we know what it takes. Like our front line is knowing what it takes for someone to say, hey, where's my true north? And then get started and not quit. Right? Yes. So we are 100% all in on someone that is 107 of something that, it's a journey, right?
So let me ask you guys something. So how did you two meet though? Because I do see that you guys have all these individual successes and all the battle scars to go with it. But at what point was it where you guys came across each other and said, this is something we got to do together?
All right, his last time, this guy has the most to say, but can I cram this in, Eric? Eric?
Sure, go for it.
Eric is the consummate entrepreneur. He's the entrepreneur's entrepreneur. So you hear his bio and, I hope everybody here heard his bio and thinks what most people should be thinking. Is this a lot of bullshit? Because there's so much bullshit around credentials and stuff. So I'm here to vouch for someone that's known for Eric personally for 25 years. And I've watched him go from nothing to his $250 million driven, $250 million driven in revenue. And he's a bona fide entrepreneur in a day and age when anybody wakes up in the morning and says, I'm an entrepreneur.
Right.
They haven't built a business. And they say, and then I'm going to teach you to 10X something, even though they haven't 1X there. So
yeah, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that today.
There's a lot of that. We kind of stand against it, to be honest, So anyhow, that's my reason for being in Bliss Champions is because when this guy said, Patrick, how about we start a company called Bliss Champions and we get people aligned with their purpose, help them figure out how to unlock that difficult thing for most people and then succeed at it for the singular purpose of them maximizing their joy and success. I said, bro, I'm in.
Wow. Yeah. And Phillip, you asked, obviously there's a story behind how we got to this point, right? And I'll share my story with you in a minute, but the best way to introduce my business partner and soon to be co-author, which we'll mention at the end here, Patrick Combs, is that if Paulo Coelho, Joseph Campbell, and Eckhart Tolle had a child and then they homeschooled them, Patrick Combs would be the result. So Patrick is really one of our generation's greatest master storytellers. and I'll put him up against anybody at the art of telling story. And he's done it in so many ways, which is what I love about his career. You know, he's spoken to millions of people as a motivational speaker. He's been a 4-time, soon to be 5-time author, and he's been a stage performer to hundreds of thousands of people. In fact, Hollywood is now making a movie out of his stage performance, which is a one-man comedic show. So the journeys that he's gone on have been much tougher than mine. I like to always say, I'm an entrepreneur. I like to go fast. So I pick things that I'm already good at, and then I run, right? Where Patrick picks things that are almost impossible and then finds a way to become great at them. So he's really where we come together and why we decided to team up. We've known each other for decades. And even though he's the consummate solopreneur, I'm the consummate entrepreneur, we always seem to end up at the same place because we're both driven really to inspire others to follow their bliss and really accomplish remarkable things and to continuously astound themselves. So that's what we're actually after. So if we had met you when you were just telling us at a bar that you wanted to become a podcaster, we would want you to astound yourself. So when Patrick says, hey, congratulations on 100 podcasts, he really means it. He's astounded by your career. So that's what we're after as a partnership. So that's the best way I can introduce my partner.
Wow, I already like that you guys, instead of like jumping in, well, as for me, you guys are constantly backing each other up, which probably goes to show the strength of your partnership and probably the power behind this entire Bliss Champions that you guys have built. Now, I personally have never gone on a retreat, right? But I know that there are many who are listening who potentially have gone to one and were disappointed. So, like, what makes this retreat so special? Besides the fact that you guys are obviously clearly already as individuals are unique, I want to know more about why you decided to start a retreat when there have been some before.
Well, I'd say ultimately everyone arrives at euphoria. So Patrick and I have that down, Pat. And that's a big statement to say that as a group, all across the board, we arrive at this place. And that euphoria comes from having massive confidence and belief that you can actually go home and do what it is we're talking about for a week, right? Or for the months previously during the coaching.
Yeah, with backing, with support, with new strategies, with a new team.
Yeah. And then when they go home, we like to watch them and see who has the momentum that goes the fastest or the furthest. And we even do follow-on investments. So Patrick and I knew that money would be a factor in some people's bliss journeys. So we created $1 million fund with our own money that we actually invest in customers that were like, wow, Phillip, that's one hell of a podcast. What could you do with 50 grand? Right? So when you give an unsolicited offer to somebody, it just blows them away. It makes them feel validated. It adds to that level of confidence. So we have, I think, 12 customers for the first 150 that we've invested all 1 million of our first fund in. And it's been a lot of fun. And we follow up with mentorship and as partners in those companies. So it's been quite a journey.
You know why I think, Phillip, you haven't heard tremendous things about retreats that perhaps, you haven't known. Well, this is because of what we spotted. Eric spotted it first. I've lived in the coaching space for 25 years. That's just what I've done. But Eric said, look, if we're going to do Bliss Champions, let me go check out the coaching space. Let me see what's going on in the world after he did this Flex His Entrepreneurial Muscles $50 million in 5-year run, Phillip.
Yeah, that's a different set of eyes.
Yeah, that's like an insane run. So, and he surprised me because he came back, Phillip, and he goes, holy smokes, these retreats aren't about transformation. I go, what do you mean? Because they all say they are. He goes, right. Patrick, they're about, what's the C word, Eric? About when people want connection. He goes, they're just about fulfilling people's deep need for connection, feeling love, feeling like they belong, and partying, and a lot of partying, a lot of drinking.
Right.
And a lot of broken entrepreneurs who are using these retreat and these getaways and, hey, now I'm in Fiji, hey, now I'm here, to get this, what I call this renewed sense of hopium, this very short-lived, hey, we're all saying we're successful, we're all having a good time, we've never looked better on Instagram. And then you go home back to just kind of nothing, because what you did is commune and party and have a great time. And here, and hear other speakers talk about how successful they are. Yeah. And that's when we knew what our retreats were not going to be. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Right. There's a place and a time. Sure.
There's a place and a time. But then we knew, like, ours are only about one thing: transformation around your limiting beliefs and whatever obstacles are in your way, strategy, masterminding strategy, and any resources marshaled that are necessary to get you in motion on the next great, well, that sounds cliche, but we do say the next great chapter of your life, but more so on what we say, get you in alignment with your purpose in a joyful way, because we think people lack joy in their business.
Yeah, a lot of people are busy chasing the dollar these days, and it's interesting to see that you guys have been able to establish something that helps people get into a place where it's about more than the money. Do you find that a lot of people that come might be extremely materially successful, but they're just miserable and it shows? Is that something that you found?
Eric's story is very relevant.
I could definitely talk to that. And, you know, when I left personal development for a decade, and a decade's a long time in that industry. You know, back in my day, when I was in it originally, there were maybe 5 books at Barnes and Noble on personal development. And now it seems like every life coach is pumping out a book on a daily basis. But 5 years ago, I was on the fast track to becoming a billionaire when I made a deliberate choice to prioritize my life. And we made the joke about 10Xing a business. I had actually 10X my net worth in 5 years through various real estate ventures, business ventures. And as I made that ascension, you know what I learned? That to become a billionaire, you had to become a monster. And it's not even a choice you get to make. People actually make it for you. Because after you reach a certain level of wealth, you become financially unrelatable to almost everyone you know and care about. And to most, you're just a paycheck or a checkbook. That's it. And that feels awful just by the look on your face, Phillip. That's exactly how I feel when that happens to me. And on the professional front, almost every business venture becomes really a zero-sum game. Because the one constant in life is that if you build something of value, someone's going to try to take it away from you, or at the very least kind of knock you down. So in order to keep winning, you have to make someone else lose. And you quickly learn that the best defense is a great offense. So you go on winning and accumulating, and all of a sudden that's all you know. You do it at breakneck speed, right? And yet another thing that nobody can relate to. I think I started 9 businesses in 1 year at once, and people were just, their minds were boggled by that. You know, and as this transformation actually happens to you, and I'm using my words very carefully, it happens to you, you start to change. You become hardened, less compassionate, less empathetic. And my favorite one, aloof. How many wealthy people have been called aloof? Almost all of them. But most of all, you become feared. And this becomes, for me, it was a very lonely place. And I almost died from it. Not the loneliness alone, but the effects of all of it, the stress, the speed, all of it. So until I woke up and I really decided that it just wasn't worth it. So I decided to transform. And I turned to the one guru I knew on this planet that could help me do that. And that was Patrick Combs.
Wow.
You know, Phillip,
I
haven't come close to making the kind of money that Eric has. And I think that isn't that a wild insight?
Yeah. A lot of people really don't. The narrative in society stands that the wealthy, it's the problem. Like, they like to point the problem, but yet if they got the opportunity to be friends with a wealthy person, that's exactly what happens. Hey, I've got this idea. Hey, and yeah, it doesn't feel good. It's like, it's the being careful here. It's the equivalent of being extremely attractive and only being liked for that reason and not for the style you've put together. There's the degree of that, and it can be soul crushing. I totally see.
Well, and yeah, to pick on one of Patrick's favorite brands, Apple, how many times have you heard Steve Jobs described as brilliant and a monster in the same sentence? Yeah. You know, you look at Bill Gates, who perhaps has invested more of his time and money for humanity than the next 100 billionaires. And yet type in Bill Gates conspiracy right now into Google and see what people think of him, or a lot of people. So let's take Richard Branson, right? He's beyond approach, right? The coolest of the cool billionaire. Even when COVID hit and he appealed to Australia, to the government to get aid for his airline in Australia, everyone looked back at that and said, you're a billionaire. We're not giving you any aid. So what did he do? He shut down the airline. Well, that pissed off a lot of people, right? It ended up being the right choice for him. So, these choices that you then start to have to make are pretty gnarly. And I'm not trying to make a story here of feel sorry for the billionaires at all. Right. I'm just saying, once you get to that level, you become a monster for the reasons that I stated.
And that's so important to get insight on, because you're right. There is this demonization of wealth, and because a lot of people don't have, but this is exactly what you guys are speaking to. The problem is that people think they have to have $1 billion, and that's beyond what's necessary. I mean, sure, like you said, people think it's nice, but then you lose a part of your humanity through that process. It happens to you. But you guys are trying to help people understand, from what I'm gathering here, is that there's a true north for you, where it might be $1 billion, it might not. One thing is for sure, though, the joy from doing the activity itself is going to be setting you free. So you're not looking at somebody and going, look at what they have and what I don't have, which is the current problem. Because you're right, a lot of people in society, all they do is look exterior wise and point to how many other things are responsible for their problems, especially people who come from poverty. I myself am a first generation American born son of an immigrant and then an American woman. And so I come from this. So I a long time used to blame others. So believe me when I tell you that I can see how it wasn't until I read, I think it was the 4 Agreements, that my brain flipped and I realized these are the agreements I've made with myself. So I speak from a place where I can truly feel like, wow, I never thought about how much humanity one might lose in success, which explains a lot, not just billionaires, but also famous people. Like what happens to you.
Quick insert, Phillip, my background is almost identical to yours. Single parent.
Really?
She was just born she was born in America, but her mother was born in Mexico, and no father. First person in my family to go to college, and trailer house upbringing. But the reason why I think what Eric is revealing, because very few wealthy people talk about or have the opportunity to talk about or feel comfortable talking about it, is what you said. It's that we're looking to find people in the world who are they're successful, no doubt. They probably have a lot of employees, big companies, whatever cars they want in the house that they dreamed of having. But it is common for those people to wake up one day like Eric did. Eric woke up one day and was rushed to the hospital, almost dying. That helped him have his awakeness call and say, but is something missing from this picture? And what's missing for them, they might not have put words to it yet, is they feel like there has to be a level of joy. There has to be something in addition to all this accomplishment that I'm proud of. Isn't there something that feels even better? And we're standing around saying, come to Bliss Island. Eric bought it. And we'll show you how to find that.
And that episode of me almost dying, if you don't mind, Phillip, I'll just tell that real quickly. Please. But it happened in 2017, so not that long ago. And I had just spent really a breakneck 7 years flexing my entrepreneurial muscles. And I started over a dozen businesses, acquired a lot of real estate. I was in that, like I said, warp speed. And the year had started with a really huge win. I sold a property I purchased for $6 million just a few years earlier for over $19 million. And I also assumed a 20% position in a $150 million venture. So that all happened within 2 months of each other. And with some of those spoils, I went out and I bought a few things like most people would probably do. And one of those things was an incredible home with a wine estate in Silicon Valley. And literally the day I was moving in, to my new mansion, I collapsed and I was rushed to the hospital by my crying wife, right, who was just scared to death what was happening. And, after running a battery of tests, the ER doctor told me that my blood sugar was over 650 and had been for months. So those of you that don't know about blood sugar, 77 to 99 is healthy.
Oh.
So I was 6X in the wrong direction. And the doctor told me I was really lucky that I came in, because if I didn't, I would have died of a massive stroke or heart attack any day. So in that moment, all I could think of was one thing, and it sure as hell wasn't, wow, I sure did buy a big house. It's that I didn't finish the job. And the job that I believe with all my heart, same as Patrick, that I'm put on this earth to do, my purpose, which is to inspire myself, and others to transform in the direction of their joy. So from that day forward, I reprioritized my entire life to put joy first. And I turned to Patrick Holmes because I knew he'd been at that for 25 years. And really, we teamed up to go from there.
It's interesting, the story you tell about how Richard Branson sought aid to continue to do the amazing things he does for the economy. There are other people out there right now who have built this massive material wealth, and they're unhappy and they don't know where to go with all the success that they have, and to the impact it could have on society if they were to just learn about your program, be a part of it, and truly make that shift. It could be 10x.
Right. So how do you do that, right? And so that's what Patrick and I do, and he'll speak to that. But first, I had to learn the difference between joy and happiness. Mm-hmm. It's not something that a lot of people give a lot of thought to, but happiness is really an individual pursuit. It can be easily achieved by doing almost anything. Go play with some puppies and you feel happy, right? Or go surfing if that makes you feel happy. But joy is really something else. It can really only be achieved when your heart is in another. And this happens when you give your greatest gifts to another. And you get to experience seeing them shine. So I'm world-class at inspiring myself, which means I'm capable of making myself happy. But when it comes to helping someone astound themselves, that's when I really experienced pure joy. And I know it's the same for Patrick. So, what are we up to recently? Just since I went on that journey with Patrick as really at the beginning, my coach and then my partner. Well, we started Bliss Champions together, a great company. We've been doing our masterminds and retreats for 3 years. It's our 4th year. We created an investment fund that we can invest in people to help take them further. And along the way, this is what's interesting. I began shedding companies in real estate that were not aligned with my purpose anymore. And they really weren't bringing me joy. I've sold more companies than I've started in the last year. And I even acquired a chunk of an island, like you mentioned earlier, a longtime really dream of mine. And I moved there and I even named it Bliss Island, right?
With a resort on it. You purchased with a resort on it.
With a cherry on top.
Yeah. So I'm no Richard Branson, but if you want to think of it as Necker West, that's how I think of it. And Patrick and I are going to build something really, really special there. So as fate would have it, Phillip, too, I exited a lot of my companies right before the start of 2020. Some of them, like my concert companies and industry, my theaters and stuff that I own, they would have been crushed by the pandemic. So the universe really rewarded my commitment to my purpose and, gave me the gift of great timing. So please hear me. This is important, you guys at home. It made me richer to follow my purpose. It didn't decrease my net worth. That's not a choice you have to make. Only this time I got my joy with it as well. So
we call it being purpose rich, because you're living your purpose and you're actually wealthy. Come on.
How many people can even say that?
So Phillip, let me try and sort of project you into this to see, if it prompts any questions or something. What if we said, hey, Phillip, in the next 6 months, you're tasked with our support to live your purpose as fully amplified and wonderful and joyful as possible? What do you think it would bring up? What if we just said, look, we want you to blast off. We want you to go into orbit around what is most purposeful in the most joyful way possible to you. And we want you to make money doing it.
How do you even get people to start on this process of the North Star and the Bliss Champions program?
Well, that's our expertise, right? And that's why it's a 6-month mastermind. And every element that's there matters. The mutual brain power, because we're not gathering inexperienced individuals. We're gathering individuals who are very experienced in almost everything except knowing how to execute on their true joy, because that can feel a little selfish to people who are used to taking care of 1,000 employees.
Right.
So, but Phillip, what you're revealing a bit like, well, my first question would be how to be sure what my purpose is.
You caught that.
And that's the essential first step for everything. One, we wrote a book that's coming out in a month. It's called The Purpose Code. And it is what we know about somebody, what we call unlocking your purpose. But there are 10 steps. The first one is you have to have a reason. You have to figure out what your deepest reason for being is. And Eric's has a very specific process for getting people clear on what automatically has always brought them joy. Because once you pin that down, Phillip, you're going to make better decisions. You're going to stick through the whole process, and you're going to feel like, wow, I'm facing my true north now.
Yeah. And you're right. The detail is that these aren't normal people. These are people who have done extraordinary things and still haven't found joy. And so coming from that world, you're going to have tried so many things already. So it's not like you're going to be at a complete loss for where you want to go. For example, I love being a host, right? So I know that's where I would go. But these people who have taken care of, I mean, the burden of that, the weight that one can feel when you have a payroll for a large company that comes down on you is another alienating force that entrepreneurs face on top of being materially wealthy. And I know that firsthand from speaking to so many entrepreneurs that they can't even talk to their partners or spouses about it. You know, that is yet another. So to have an island. Now, I know you mentioned that there's a training that happens before people even get invited to the island. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a 6-month program that culminates in the 5-day retreat at the end at Eric's resort called Bliss Island out in Hawaii. You know, and that 6 month is what people would sort of picture with a mastermind. We're meeting up in a very small group over Zoom on a regularly scheduled basis, and we're going through the transformational process. By the time they hit Bliss Island, we've got them so close to ready to smash through every limiting belief that the transformation for us is guaranteed. That's all. We have 130 graduates, and we know what happens once they land at Eric's place.
Already 130 graduates.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so this is what you guys are doing now. It's the COVID, right? So there's no telling where 6 months from now where life is going to be. So how are you guys facilitating this challenge given that it's an island and people have to go to it? Is it because of the 6 month training program that you guys have the confidence that this is going to lift up and people are going to be able to come to the island, or have you prepared the island in a way where that can be facilitated for the current circumstances in society?
We already ran it in COVID last year, you know.
Awesome.
We did make every preparation. Eric, you want to speak to some of them? I mean, either one of us could.
Yeah, definitely. So, you know, out of the customers that we had in 2020, you know, because 80% of what we deliver is online through Zoom, we really didn't lose customers. So the value was just so great on the coaching, but the big reward is the retreats, right? So not everyone was able to travel. If you were in Australia or Canada, for instance, the country won't let you out.
Yeah.
So there was just nothing we could do there. We had to push it on, right, to another time. But you'd be surprised how many people were willing to travel, right? Without getting into any COVID philosophies. You know, how safe is it to go to the grocery store or to Costco versus to get on a plane? I mean, it becomes a flip of a coin to some degree. But we actually
rapid test everybody. Every single person has to be we COVID rapid test them.
Sure.
Yeah, we bought our own test, and then Hawaii. Yeah, and Hawaii has their own guidelines now, right? As long as you get a test within 72 hours, then they give you another test when you arrive. So it's really nice picking people up at the airport knowing that they've been tested twice. And it feels good for my own self-confidence. And then we have our own rapid test that we deploy as well. It's just good common sense measures. But I think timing worked out for us in 2020. It seems like things lifted. We had a great retreat in Cabo in August. And then I acquired Bliss Island. And right after that, we had our first retreat in September at Bliss Island. So we literally broke it in overnight. Wow. I got the keys, and 3 weeks later, we're having our first retreat there. So we also have the option of private aviation. So that's an option that we make available as well.
Okay, yeah. Which was my main reason for the question. Had a lot to do with, like, countries aren't letting people out. And I know that you guys are doing this. Anyone is welcome from all around the world, as long as they are willing to find their bliss with you guys. Right, Joseph Campbell.
Entirely Joseph Campbell and Paulo Coelho.
Yeah. No,
those are a couple of our heroes.
So tell me what's next on the horizon for you? You guys talked about the book, but is that the only project you guys are working on? And are there people you're specifically looking to reach out to for this program?
Yeah, most important is we're taking applications right now. So every October through December, that's our application period. And, I actually personally do the interviews. So if you apply, it costs nothing to apply. I think we ask about 10 questions. That comes through, our team assesses it, and then an interview gets scheduled with me. And what's really neat about the interviews is, I think it's hands down the greatest way to meet somebody, because you end up having so many common bonds and you're talking about something that just matters so much to you, right? Your joy. How do you go on a bliss journey to attain joy? That these conversations with these business owners, they last an hour or an hour and a half. They're supposed to last 30 minutes. And so I'm making friends as I'm interviewing. And I think I've heard myself more than once say, well, even if we don't offer you enrollment, I sure would like to be friends with you, So, but then after the end of that, I get on the phone with Patrick. We go over everything that we learned in the interview, and we make a decision right there and then. So, we don't try to overthink this. We know when someone's the right candidate for us, so we make them an enrollment offer when they come. We're very refined in that area. We even use a psychologist at our disposal to make sure that we're making the right choices, because we want to pair the right people together. In our groups, we keep them small in size. Each group is only a pod of 8, right? So that's another reason we can run retreats in places around the world. 8 people at a time participate in the retreat. So I actually bought a resort that has an 8-key luxury hotel on the estate with my home. So we're very into that number. That number works really well for transformation.
Yeah, infinity. No, that's different. That's different. And
I like Philip.
Yeah. No,
he knows all our secrets.
I like what you guys are doing. I'm picking up what you're putting down. I personally, for me, it's like, okay, if someone's listening right now and they're like, I don't know if it's still right for me, because this is you never know who's listening, and they're wondering, am I the right person for this? Am I happy? What would you say to them if they're listening?
They're asking the question, am I right? Am I the right person? Am I happy? Then they're already in the 60% chance it's right for you, because you have those questions. Because once you're on point with your purpose and you're on a bliss journey, you would hear this, and the only thought you would have is, I'm doing that. I'm so joyful. I'm on the greatest adventure of my life. I couldn't be happier. So that's when you know we're not for you. Right. You're just like, I've never crushed my joy as much. I didn't know this much joy was available. I didn't know this much was possible. But the other way for a person to tell is really key on what you said, Philip. If they go, does it feel like something's missing? Like, yes, I'm successful, but something's missing.
Yeah.
That's the key right there. That something might be they desire to have a voice in the world. They desire to be able to give back more. They desire something that feels selfish. That's why they haven't done it yet. They desire, we call it they have a secret ambition, an unrealized ambition. Yeah. If it's that person, they're like, yeah, but that doesn't matter. That's why it's secret and unrealized. Then they should take a conversation with Eric.
And we'd like to point out, while my path was to shed companies that no longer brought me joy, we're not suggesting that anybody get rid of their company, the company that sustains them and feeds their family and all of that. We're all about the word and, not or. So we're looking to add joy to your life. And if it's best for you to keep your company in play and go on a hobby run or create a second business or add an element to your business that would bring you more joy, we're going to help you find that, right? So it's an interesting thing, Philip, because I get almost every day I get asked for money, literally every day of my life. And I say no to 99.99% of those requests, because the only investments I make are in people's bliss journeys, right? So if you came to me and said, hey, Eric, will you invest $100,000 in my podcast? You needed to come to me 5 years ago before you started the podcast, right? So I'm looking for, well, Philip, what else would bring you great joy? you know? So you might actually be like, well, gosh, you know, I always wanted to be a race car driver. And now all of a sudden my ears are perking, right? Based on your enthusiasm and what you're bringing forth. So Patrick and I have a fine-tuned ear for what people really want to do, not who they are or what they project, what their narrative is, what business that they run. And that's why I didn't really like a lot of those retreats and a lot of the entrepreneur events that I went to, is because I was getting the false version. And then they'd find out I'm an investor, and then I'd get the true version later. And I want the real version at the beginning, right? Yeah. I don't want to have this whole song and dance of, you know, coming to me later when you're broken. You know, I want to hear it now. Like, what else do you want to do with your life? You know?
Yeah, no, it's funny. And I know for a fact that that's what you guys do, because you wouldn't let me off the hook when I turned the question around on you. So right. I know you guys are made for this. So without letting you guys off the hook, where can people contact you best? Is it on a social media platform, email, a website?
You know, blisschampions.com is where you find the application. No cost, and you can jump on the phone with Eric if the application, you know, reads with some authenticity and some sincerity, and we see a couple hallmark traits of someone that really does want more joy in their life.
Patrick, one more. So if you want to see where the retreats are, blissisland.com. And I hope you appreciate when you go to that website that I've only owned the property for 3 months. So I've done a lot in 3 months. You're going to see some magic in there too, but that is the home of our retreats. So those 2 websites would be a good place.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, I need to step my game up so I can get on this bliss journey, because from what I gather, if I can get on this bliss journey, it's going to get me to the next level of what I'm doing, whatever it is. So for me, that's huge. I need to find out how to get to that level. But I think it's cool that you guys are actually approaching people who also shouldn't be ostracized from society just because they've amassed material wealth, because they're still humans. You know, that's still a person who, just because they achieve success, shouldn't have to all of a sudden forego the normal things that life has to offer, which are beautiful things like genuine friendship, you know, for one, you know, genuine connection, things of that nature. You're right. So I think it's a benefit to society to be able to take care of that portion of our people who have amassed that kind of wealth, to then be able to go back into society after your retreat and your program to really create that impact that they really needed to do from the beginning. Thanks. Yeah, that's invaluable.
The book is our, you know, help as many people as we can play, you know, for, well, I don't know, a book will cost $20 or something.
Yeah.
The book is, here's what we know. So we are trying to help on both ends, but the retreats, where we specialize in what the territory Eric knows from personally living. Hey, do I have 60 seconds, Phillip?
You have all the time in the world you need.
Oh, thanks, buddy. Okay, so I want to share something. I hope somebody listening, you know, takes some value out of my life experience. Similar to the people that we try and serve. When I was 33, 34 years old, I had a very, very successful speaking career, by all measures, and I loved it. But for 10 years, Phillip, I had this secret unrealized ambition that I picked up when I was 23. When I was 23, I saw this guy that you remind me of, actually, John Leguizamo. And John Leguizamo you remind me of John Leguizamo.
I literally get that all the time. Okay.
Yeah. It's like, oh man, he's so John Leguizamo. It's so cool. So I saw John Leguizamo doing a comedic one-person show, and you know, here's a guy that loves my day job as a speaker and sees this guy on HBO, and he's tearing up the stage. He's riveting an audience for 2 hours, but he is doing what my purpose just goes ding, 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 like something about that is you. And then the next thing is I became terrified. And, you know, everything else kicked in. This is why Bliss Champions exist. Everything else kicked in and said, there's no fucking way you could ever do that. You don't have the talent. You don't have the experience. You know, he's got more talent in his fingernail than you could acquire in a lifetime. You didn't go to theater school. He trained with the best. That would be impossible. My secret ambition was impossible. So for 10 years, I hid from it. right? That brought me to 33. At 33 years old, I somehow found the courage. Well, what really happened is at 33 years old, Leguizamo came on the TV in a hotel room, and my purpose had turned into a purpose curse. And it caused me actual physical pain. If you hide from your purpose for a long time, it will actually begin to cause you physical pain. And it was so painful to watch this guy do something that I wished I could do so badly, that that I was either going to kind of have a breakdown, some kind of real disastrous mental breakdown from the anguish of fear, or do something different. And make a long story short, I broke through that night, and I decided, what if I just do this for fun? That was my breakthrough. What if, instead of trying to think about how to be great or turn it into a living, I just indulged the desire to tell a story to people in a theater for fun? Well, to make the story as short as possible, for 15 years, I played that show around the world for big dollars and 100,000 people. And now it's being made into an HBO movie, or into a Hollywood movie. But what if I had never said yes to my purpose? What if I had never said yes to following my bliss? I know what it's like to live 10 years without saying yes to it. And that's 10 years too long. Yeah. So I hope somebody on here hears that and says, I have a secret, crazy, unrealistic ambition too. And this guy's saying, what happens if I believe in it? Because I know your purpose never steers you wrong.
It's so
and
funny.
Phillip, Phillip, this will resonate with you. This is why we're a good pairing, because a lot of business owners like me come into our program, and I would say out of the over 130 customers, over 50% have selected a bliss journey that they want to have a voice. They want to have a voice in the world. And we're talking businesses of every type, right? Is their main business. They want to have a voice. So a guy like Patrick Combs, who's a master storyteller, who's reached that voice on so many different levels. So he's the perfect person to be able to coach that. So we kind of often laugh, like the artists that come into our program, they want to work with me because they want me to teach them how to make more money from their art. Whereas, because they're already doing their bliss, they just don't know how to monetize it. And then all the entrepreneurs seem to want to be with Patrick to learn how to have a voice, right? Speech coach me, teach me how to write a book, teach me how to do this, right? So.
No, I specifically remember a conversation I had in New York a few years, I want to say about 5 years ago. There was a friend who I'd met, and he told me that he was an actuary. That's what he did for a living, and he was making a lot of money, but he secretly wanted to be a DJ. Right. And he never did it because, well, the money was good. So that's a real thing on every level, from the top to the bottom.
Therein lies the crux of the matter, you know. But see, he has a false dichotomy, and it comes up in our transformation process all the time. And he thinks it's an either or. We know it's an and.
Yeah. 100%, man. I can't wait to see what you guys do. I already know you're going to blow it out the water. Like, I didn't go to any retreat specifically because of the sauce that they deliver, only to find out really they're hurting for investors or whatever it's going to be. But you guys really, I mean, the pairing you guys have, the business and the spirituality, that's really, I think, next level on where the world is going and heading. So I'm actually really excited to see what you guys do. I hope you don't mind. I'll follow you guys on social media if you guys have it.
I'll be back, bro.
Yeah, I think you guys dropped it here in the details, and we'll be sure to add it. Cool. Man, I wish I had more time personally so I could continue to learn more about you guys. That's just the kind of energy you guys give. But if there's anything else you want to say before we sign off, otherwise, man, I can't tell you how I appreciate enough that you guys opened up to me about such personal matters.
Well, I see a new friendship formed, so that's what I would want to close it out on.
Let's go.
And I do just really strongly encourage people. It doesn't take anything except effort to fill out an application and get on the phone with this, the greatest entrepreneur I've personally known in my 30 years, and pick his brain. BlissChampions.com.
This is the takeaway I'd give our audience is, Phillip, everything I've heard out of your mouth, if you applied, you would be accepted. So if you're sitting there at home thinking, oh, I have to have, I don't know, one of these things Eric mentions that he has, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking to transform lives, right? So ultimately, give yourself a whirl. What do you got to lose? Apply. At the worst, you're going to get into a long, beautiful conversation with me, and hopefully we become friends. So you're going to know right away. So don't be fearful of applying. Don't think this isn't for you. Just give it a whirl. We'll decide. We'll let you know if we think it's for you. And then we go on this beautiful journey together.
And when we're all in on someone, we are all in on that.
It's 10 questions. It's 10 questions away from joy. So yeah, I hope the editor's listening and they call it that. 10 questions away from joy, because that's just a conversation waiting to happen.
Cool. Thanks, Phil.
Well, thank you guys for stopping by.
Thanks. Well, thanks, buddy. Good luck
for having us on your great show.
Call us back on your 200th podcast. I want to be on the 200th podcast.
It's a deal.
All right. See ya.
Thanks.